Here at the Brave New Teaching Podcast, we are always looking for the newest, most engaging, and fantastic books for you, the teachers, to step up your game and enhance your practice. And we have a brand new book recommendation for you that we just couldn't wait for an entire episode to share. If you are looking for a professional development book that's going to serve you over this winter break, or maybe even as a gift to a fellow educator, we have got your next recommendation. You need to check out Roll Call by Dr. Jenna Copper. As you know, Dr. Jenna Copper is one of the greatest friends we have over here at the podcast. You have downloaded her interview with Marie almost more than any other episode. So I know that a lot of you have heard Jenna and her work and what she's up to. So not only should you listen to that episode, but you need to check out Jenna's brand new book. This book is phenomenal. And as you know, Dr. Copper is an education professor and former English teacher. So she's in everything from teaching students to teaching teachers. And she has written the ultimate guide to creating lessons that will really and truly captivate your students while still meeting those all-important standards. This book, Roll Call, is packed with practical strategies and innovative ideas that will transform your classroom. And for a very special bonus time, Jenna is offering an exclusive perspective plan toolkit absolutely free when you purchase Roll Call. It's going to be so awesome, and you are going to love all of the new ideas that you get. You can buy Jenna's book right now on Amazon. So head over to Amazon.com. Find your copy of Roll Call, and then once you have your order, you're going to go to rollcallbonus.com. That's ROLECALLBONUS.com, Roll Call Bonus, or head to today's show notes and claim your free perspective plan toolkit. It's a freebie right now when she's launching her book for the very first time. It's not going to linger around for very long. Your students will thank you, and you're going to thank you, because this is going to make you feel good about teaching and really amp up your energy. We're so excited for you to read it yourselves and let us know what you think. Talk to you soon and enjoy the show.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching, and welcome to Chapter 2 of our Novels in Verse collection. Hello, my pretty friend.
Oh, you thought that face was pretty?
It was beautiful.
I have a lot of teeth, and I don't ever really look at myself this much other than when I'm recording with you, and I'm like, God, I got a mouthful of teeth.
I feel like you have the same amount of teeth as the average human. Did you get your
big teeth,
your wisdom teeth removed?
I did. It was awful.
Oh, then you have the same amount of teeth as I do, assuming.
Well,
do you know something weird?
What's that?
And he's going to hear this. My dad has his wisdom teeth. So he actually has a mouth full of teeth.
Why is he holding on to them?
I don't know.
Tell your dad that Disney World's better than Disneyland.
Oh, I don't.
I'm telling him right now.
Hey, listen, we are a family of Southern California born and bred people.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
So we're not gonna agree with you because you're wrong. Anyways, friends, we are here to continue our conversation about novels in verse. If you missed last week's episode where we were just honestly spitballing quite a bit. I mean, we knew what we wanted to talk about, but it was one of those Brave New Teaching raw, just brainstormy conversations where Amanda and I each kind of take our own lane and go with it, talking about possibilities for novels in verse, how to do novels in verse as an all class unit, as ideas for choice unit when you might use one or the other, looking at a skill-based approach or a thematic-based approach, which spoiler alert, really the only difference is going to be how you plan and your essential question, which is what we're going to be looking at today, and the heavier focus, but all the things are still going to happen. We also talked last week about a freebie that we have. Amanda, tell them what they've won.
Tell them what they want. Okay, well, I was just distracted because I was trying to think of a metaphor, but I will tell them what they want. Our freebie is amazing. And I will come back to the metaphor because it was coming together. We really think that a novel in verse is poised beautifully as a read aloud or as an opportunity for students to listen to the audiobook. We're particularly obsessed with Elizabeth Acevedo, who, at least in the two that I've listened to, she narrates her own. And because of that, students get to hear from, the actual creator. And so what we created together were some listening sketch notes. And the sketch notes are broken up into pieces, but they're really kind of honed in on the theme or the essential question that students are focusing on in the unit. And they can be jotting down doodle notes, evidence, all kinds of things that they hear while they're listening. So this is a very universal template that you can use basically with any text that you want kids to listen to. We're really thinking about novels in verse, but you probably can find a dozen other ways to use it after you go grab it and print it out.
Mm-hmm. And that is at bravenewteaching.com/theme notes or in the show notes for today's episode. Okay. We are going to be talking today through two possibilities for an essential question, right? Because everything we do here at Brave New Teaching is inquiry-based. So we are always going to start with a question. If you are newer to the podcast, I highly encourage you to take a look at our website, bravenewteaching.com. We have so many episodes about essential questions, about why you should use essential questions. I mean, if you go back to the beginning, it's like, why? Building the case. Amanda has a really good interview. We have many interviews with other professors and educators who use an inquiry-based approach. So if this is something that you're like, wow, I feel like I know what you're talking about, we have so many resources for you. But today we are going to dive in. We have two essential questions that we are going to just do a deep dive into, and then we're going to send you on your way to think about it. And it's going to be great. Oh, and after the break, we're going to talk to you about what all of our happy hour friends get, because we took this Poet X novels in verse series, a collection, and we put it on steroids for happy hour members. So get excited for that. Amanda, are you ready?
After the break, I'm going to share my metaphors.
Your metaphor? Okay. She's like furiously writing something. So I was trying to vamp a little bit, but she's not quite ready. So you know what we're going to do while she's writing her metaphor? We are going to go ahead and cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a high school teacher from Southern California.
Join us after the show and happy hour to extend your BNT experience with instant access to our resources, workshops, and courses.
Visit shop.bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to join us today. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show.
Oh, they're ready. They're ready.
Oh, okay. Go. Let's hear it. You've hyped up this metaphor, or maybe I've hyped it up for you, but either way, it's been hyped.
I don't know that it's going to live up to the hype, but I wanted to just revisit this idea that we were talking about last episode and that we brought up at the beginning of the show. With every essential question inquiry unit, we talk about in a lot of those episodes, there's a trifecta, right? There's three things that go into creating an essential question unit. They are the text, the themes, and the skills. It's a trifecta. All three of them must happen. They all work together. But when we actually decide the direction for the unit, we can't do all three of them with equal energy. That doesn't serve anybody. And so kind of what we were trying to talk about was, it's exhausting. So today we're going to look at essential questions that are going to take us down two different paths. But like we said, it's not at the neglect of other things. So metaphor, I was thinking about like when you design a room, like my living room, for example, I really wanted to do like the half wall, like not the baseboard. What is that called? The wainscoting?
The chair rail. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that would be a solid color. And then the top half wallpaper.
Oh,
so
I like
metaphor here is that like, yes, the room will exist, but there are going to be dominant things and more like accessory types of things. Like, well, an outfit would be another great metaphor, right? Like maybe your pant is going to be the star of the show, but that doesn't mean you're not going to wear a shirt.
I mean, I don't know about you.
I mean, not necessarily.
Just kidding. Okay.
So,
okay. Good.
Does that work?
Solid metaphor.
Like one piece is going to dominate in a good way, right? Like it's going to lead the charge so that everything else can kind of fall underneath of it.
Yeah.
It's going to make more sense as we develop these units
No,
because really
it makes sense.
it makes sense, right? Because you just, I don't know, the thread is hard. And this is one of the things that for me, like when I was in the beginning stages of learning inquiry, I didn't get why it was so important until I finally was like, oh, this is helping me make decisions about my outfit.
Yeah. Well, it's pick one thing. It's what we always say. Just pick something.
Yes.
Focus on, pick one thing. Pick the thing that's going to be important. Maybe not the only important thing, but the thing that's going to be the most important right now.
That's how I'm going to coach teachers now and say, well, you chose these pants. Do you really think that these earrings belong with this outfit?
Yeah, there's not even belt loops on it. How are you going to go and wear a belt, right?
So stop trying to add random stuff to your unit that doesn't match your pants.
Okay. So let's talk about the pants of the unit. Let's talk about the underwear of the unit.
Oh.
The essential question.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It covers all your bits. See what I'm saying?
Covers all your bits. So there are two ways we're going to go about this. Okay. I think I'll go first because you already decided that we're not.
Really crack myself up.
I know you do. We already decided which of these two directions we're going to follow for the rest of our series. So let's do the one that we're not going to follow.
Right.
So that the people can hear it and then be sad that we didn't choose it.
Well, but if you are a happy hour member, you are going to get both of these ways that we are following the series and then some, because we have a whole unit makeover, like slide deck resource for you specific to the Poet-X, but also very adaptable to any novel and verse that you would like to use. And like all the things that we talk about from here forward, happy hour members are getting as a resource this month. So just make sure that you at least check out bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to see what we are talking about, because it has had a whole glow up. It's a teacher work club. And this is one of the first like concrete materials that we are working on together. So if you're wondering, like, where do I get that? How can I see that? Happy hour. That's how. Okay. Amanda, do you want to start it off with our first essential question?
So we are operating under the assumption that we have a generally, air quote, normal amount of time for a, air quote, regular unit, right? So we're talking about, at least for me, on a non-quarter system, we're talking about like a 4 to 6 weeks, 50-minute class period-ish kind of time frame. For me, that's like a normal unit. Marie can translate that later for other versions. But in that case, a skill-based approach with the Poet-X, a novel and verse unit, a question that I like to do that would be something like this. Which is more powerful? How much you say or what you say?
And it's so good for kids because it reaches every child. It reaches the you and me's of the world who are yappers, and it reaches the kids who are not, and everybody in between.
And I think absolutely the answer is somewhere in the middle, that they're going to have to wrestle with defining. And that is what makes that essential question kind of tricky, because the answer is both, right? As will be our other, so many other of our questions. And it really sets up poetry and even small pieces of rhetoric and speeches as kind of a genre-based, right, skill-focused type of a unit. So we're going to be looking at the efficacy of language. We're going to look at the flowery kinds of language. We're going to look at what is the purpose of a metaphor versus a paragraph. So it really sets up skill in a much more interesting way than, I've ever really done when I was first starting, because the goal is to figure out which is more effective or which is more powerful. And I think that is something that kids can do. And it really gives you the chance to choose, okay, I want to do this through the lens of a novel and verse. I want to do this through the lens of a speech. And I want to do this through the lens of a handful of other poems, right? You can really mix and match the texts that are in there in order to give kids the chance to evaluate. So yes, it's going to be about skill, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be looking at like the power of language, right? And like what those concepts are of what makes people, I think when I think about power and language, to me, that means that the people who hear it do something. there's action. And I think
Mhm.
having that conversation with kids is, well, what makes language powerful? Just feeling it, or that there's action? So like you're going to get all those big conceptual conversations going by focusing on the skill first.
And you have a good essential question when there's room for a very robust conversation at multiple steps along the way.
Absolutely.
Yes. And actually, the same can be said for our thematic question, which is the one that we're going to barrel down this track with. And it's similar, and yet...
Wait, hold on. Before you do that, I do want to let people know, because we're not going to do the skill one, it's super cool. And I've done it, I've coached it before. So I told Marie, I said, if you guys want, I will do a live coaching training, and we will post it in the show notes. We'll post it on Instagram when it's going to take place. But I will do a video kind of version of what we're doing on the podcast. It will be available for just, a short amount of time. Curriculum Rehab teachers, we're going to end up putting it inside of Curriculum Rehab. But if you want to come to this live coaching session, you can sign up and get tickets online. And I would love to have you and walk you through this version if that's something that you wanted to do.
I think that sounds great, because the true downfall to every single time we do a conversation like this is that I end up wanting to rewrite at least a piece of my curriculum, if not the whole entire thing. It's such a problem, but it's also like making me so much better. Like just refine. I am so glad you said that, because I almost forgot to mention the training that you're going to do, because I need it.
Well, it was hard to decide. I mean, this is a very cool direction. I think that for us, when we were talking about it, though, Poet X in particular is so deeply rich in theme that it would be hard for me to do Poet X, I think, from a more clinical standpoint than the really emotive thematic side. So we did choose the thematic route to go for our happy hour resource and the rest of these episodes, but I'm glad that we chose that.
Well, and the thematic route was, this question was born of a conversation about story, because our students, the kids of 2025, are so inundated with content. And that content comes absolutely from social media. And even the way that like TVs and movies are now changing their storytelling, it's so character driven, almost only character driven versus plot driven versus relationship, right? Like the different types of story that you can have is so character centered that's how they're looking at their own lives. I'm noticing my students are I'm getting very philosophical here, but like not philosophical, more like psychologically analytical. My students, it's so ingrained in them, the idea of be the main character in your own life. To people like you and me, Amanda, who are millennials, who are moms, this idea of being the main character in your own life is not new to us, but it's like renewed in this season of like motherhood, right? Because we grew up in the days of rom-coms. We grew up in the days of the chick flick, like ruling all. And so we've seen that main character energy, but now it's being redefined as be the main character of your own life. And I think it has a lot of great potential. But to a child in their formative years, being the main character in your own life can create an asshole, like quicker than anything else. Like, it can create a self-centered and self-righteous just behavior. I'm not saying that the kids are bad. I'm saying that their behavior is unsavory when I can see that they are really employing the I'm the main character in my own life, because I think it gets a little bit lost in how to translate that, because they are freaking adolescents and their fatty layer of their frontal lobe has not dissipated. It's not their fault. It is what it is. And so anyways, that was a long setup for, I always want to ask them about their story, and not just the story that they are telling everybody, but the story they're telling themselves and how the two intersect, because they're not ever the same. And so our thematic essential question for this unit using the Poet X is, which is more important, knowing your story or telling it?
I am really proud of myself. Yeah.
That was good. I just kept saying, it's about telling your story. It's about your own story. It's about the importance of your story. And Amanda was like, I hear you. Stop. Let me think about this.
It's tricky. And I'm really glad we didn't record that session, because it was pretty rough. But the thing about writing an essential question is there are just a lot of moving pieces. And I'm sure plenty of you guys have tried to type in getting EQs out of AI or of any kind of, chat software. And the thing is, you can get a lot of sort of close things, but you have to be able to think about, what does this look like with my students?
Right. Who's it for? Always. Who's this for?
And what does this look like in practice for 4 to 6 weeks?
Yes. Can this be maintained?
And like, how do we pull the threads of the answers out of this text? So one of the things we started doing was talking about Xiomara, right? The main character energy of Poet X. And Xiomara's, and one of the things I love about Poet X is structurally, it's so beautifully set up as like a beginning, middle, end, coming of age character arc story, right? At the beginning, we have Xiomara, who is really kind of stuck in a world that she's been told about, that she's kind of a part of, but it's not hers, right? She's really uncomfortable with how men look at her, how she feels objectified when she's looked at on the street. She's kind of a subject of her mother's ruling over the household. She's an observer of the relationship between her mother and father, but doesn't really understand it. She's got a twin, but they're at an age where they're not communicating the same way they used to when they were kids. They're just kind of in the same room. So she's definitely like in her story,
but out of
I don't
place.
know that she really knows her story, or she's certainly not telling. Well, she's telling it to us, kind of, right?
Right. But she doesn't feel ownership over it.
No, I don't think she's a victim of it. She's just kind of like a bystander in her own story, right?
Well, she's kind of floating through it. She hasn't gotten to the top. She hasn't gotten that bird's eye view yet. Yeah.
Well, then it kind of like transitions, right? She starts to experience things, right? She falls in love. She starts to kind of break her mom's rules. Right? There's more action verbs involved in this kind of transformational middle. And then by the end, right, she's up on stage. She's actually like literally sharing her story, slam poetry style. So, I mean, we can really see that EQ arc from all the way through, from both ends of the either or. So that is, I think, what gets me so excited about that EQ is that I can visualize that arc for her. Same with when we talk about Fahrenheit with Montag's transformation. Yep. I love it when it's so clear. The example is so clear. Because when we talk about ourselves, it's not so clear. And that's great because we're human and it should be a little bit messier. But to have a clean example makes the text that much more, I think, effective.
Well, and it's, again, just like the one about the skill question, the conversations can be rich throughout a unit. Yeah. So for me, you had said earlier, I would translate like a, 4 to 6 week unit. I think this would be a 3, maybe 4 week unit because I like to bake it. So probably like a 3 week unit on the quarter system where I see students every day for 90 minutes a day, because we would have, certain days where we can take in a lot of content, certain days where we have to process the content, certain days where we need to be doing some assessment. One thing that's kind of a misnomer or like misconception, I guess, of like something like the quarter system, like, oh, you have them for 90 minutes a day. That's so long. Yeah, but any teenager can only sit and, any human being can only take in so much on any given day. And I truly miss the semester system where I had kids for 50 minutes a day. And then like one day a week, I had them for 2 hours because I honestly got through content quicker because they had like overnight to process and then come back, versus I am trying to jam 2 days worth into their little noggins and it just doesn't always work. That was a little sidebar for us all. But Happy Hour members, make sure that you go and take a look at the resource that we have coming at you for, well, truly, the resource is for January, February, and then in March, we will update all of that because we're doing like a 3-part. We're looking at things on more of like a 3-month arc in Happy Hour where we can get our lives together and inspire each other, where we can work on really like specific curriculum things, and then we can help each other out. It's truly more of a teacher work club than anything else. But the unit makeover that we're talking about here is all there for you.
Yeah. Well, I think just to kind of round us out, I think one other thing that we had, or 2 other things that we had mentioned in our, like when we were prepping for this, is that the unit works beautifully how we've described it, but Marie was also really interested in really having an approach with lenses.
Yeah.
And so I think that this question, right, which is more important, knowing your story or telling it? When I coach teachers too, sometimes when we look at our unit calendar and we're thinking about supplements, which we'll get into more in a upcoming episode, is like, how do you break down your weeks? So we could do, like I said earlier, you could kind of do like the beginning, middle, end, but you could also break down your weeks by lens. You could look at like a feminist lens in the first week. You could look at a race lens. You could look at all these different lenses on that EQ throughout the unit. It's really set up beautifully for that. And then if you are doing American Lit and you're wondering what is America's story and who gets to tell it, this, I think, is just a wonderful way to just kind of, it just sits right under that question as a great unit example to then come back to at the end of the year. Okay, so what is America's story? What is Xiomara's story? How did Xiomara's story change depending on who would have told it? It's just good.
Yeah, I know. And this is a problem because now here I am going, what can I shift in my 9-week quarter? Okay, well, friends, we just threw a lot at you. And it is time for you to go think about that. Have a great week at school. Next week, we are coming back at you with chapter 3 of this Novels in Verse collection. We're going to talk about gateway activities. And I'm excited about it because I have a really fun idea. And it's simple. Oh my gosh, it's so simple. So make sure that you head back here next week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Go to the show notes for all of the things that we've been talking about and make it a good one. See you next time.
Bye-bye. Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in Happy Hour and the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great week at school.